report or the first report? I'm sorry. There it is, yep. 0.0484.
0.0484 meters per second?
Yes.
And that's at 6:15 and 36 seconds?
Yes, it is.
All right. So now, as you were examining that data, sir, you certainly knew from this investigation by that point that when the phone was moving, according to that data, at 6:15 and 36 seconds on January 29th of 2022, John O'Keefe had already been found mortally wounded and incapacitated, correct?
From the voicemail message, that's how I was able to... I don't know the exact time frames that he was found and transported, but I know 6:08 from Miss Reed's voicemail that the 911 call is made, and they're on scene.
I remember this from the first trial last year. That is evidence that his body was dragged. 0.04 meters per second is extremely slow. Like when we walk, I think we walk 0.8 to 1.2 meters per second. So let's call it the average of that, 1.2 plus 0.8. That's 2 divided by 2. 1. Easy. 1 meter per second. When you're...
Okay, so why am I watching this? This guy is attorney Larry Foreman, right? So attorney, is he attorney in Boston? Probably not, right? He's just probably some guy in fucking Wisconsin just like, I'm going to weigh in on this Karen Reed trial and get some clients on my side here. But he offers a theory, okay? Because if Karen Reed didn't drop John O'Keefe off and then hit him with the car and then take the fuck off, then something else had to have happened. I've heard that John O'Keefe and Brian Higgins were getting into a fight, and then the dad and then Colin Albert jumps in, and then the dog jumps in. So there's a fight that happens inside the house, and then they drag the body out. She texts or Google searches, how long does it take for the body, to freeze in the cold? And then after he freezes, then they drag the body to the front of the yard. That's the theory I heard just from, two random chatters. Well, let's hear what Larry Foreman, he's going to offer a theory as well. What does he think happened? Because he thinks Karen Reed is innocent. So what does he think had happened? What is the truth? Because the truth is immutable and immovable and eternal.
Walking, you walk approximately 1 meter per second. If you have a shorter gait, it'll be a little bit less. If you have a longer gait, it'll be a little bit more. But the average, 1 meter per second. 0.04 meters per second is 1/200th of that. You're moving at a snail's pace, i.e., if it's a body being dragged from, let's say, as some of you have been watching this channel for a long time, you know that my hypothesis, my own personal hypothesis, is John was inside the house. They got into a fight. They meant to beat him up, but they accidentally knocked him unconscious. And that's when Jennifer McCabe Googles, how long does it take for somebody to die in cold weather? How long to die in the cold?
Imagine making $453,000 in a single month as an affiliate marketer without
because they put his body outside to frost. And then, after he's nice and dead, they drag him to the front of the house around 6:30 in the morning before anybody's awake, because we had Lucky's testimony in the first trial that he drove by a few hours earlier and there was no body out there. He was behind the house. He was dying, gasping his last breath, dying of hyperthermia, hypothermia, dying of hypothermia. And then once he was officially dead, around 6:30 a.m., they dragged him to the front of the house, and 30 minutes later, police show up. I forgot, who was it that initially made the 911 call? Who was the first per second? If you have a shorter gait, it'll be a little bit less. If you have a longer gait, it'll be a little bit more. But the average, 1 meter per second. 0.04 meters per second is 1/200th of that. You're moving at a snail's pace, i.e., if it's a body being dragged from, let's say, as some of you have been watching this channel for a long time, you know that my hypothesis, my own personal hypothesis, is John was inside the house. They got into a fight. They meant to beat him up, but they accidentally knocked him unconscious. And that's when Jennifer McCabe Googles, how long does it take for somebody to die in cold weather? How long to die in the cold? Because they put his body outside to frost. And then, after he's nice and dead, they drag him to the front of the house around 6:30 in the morning before anybody's awake, because we had Lucky's testimony in the first trial that he drove by.
So according to Larry Foreman, he's saying that he doesn't know who got into the fight, but he does say that Jennifer McCabe texting how long does it take to freeze, that she was a part of it. So Jennifer McCabe, he is thinking, is a part of it, but he doesn't mention Brian Higgins, nor does he mention Colin Albert, and then the dad. I don't know, that's not Brian Albert, but another dad or something. Now, there was Brian Higgins, and I got this off to the side here, so you probably won't see this picture that I'm looking at. But this guy right here is Brian Albert, or Colin Albert, my bad, excuse me, Colin Albert. And so who is Colin Albert? Well, this is, he's related to Brian Albert. Brian Albert is the house, the guy of the house. And so what are we doing? Well, this is a picture right here, has some scabbed up knuckles. He's got, 4 of his knuckles have scabs on it. So he's hanging out, he's hanging out at a bar and he's got scabs on his knuckles. When did that happen? When was that picture? And I don't know if we have that. Should I look at Brian Higgins? It's not Congressman Brian Higgins, is it? That sounds like that'd be crazy. It has to be this Brian, right? The ATF agent.
Okay.
Protect your family's dreams under our roof. American Family Insurance.
Have you ever seen the magic glasses that can see clearly without glasses? This glasses can...
All right, everybody, we've got WBZ's Christina Rex, our reporter in the courtroom for the Karen Reed trial in Dedham. And even though we only had one day of testimony this week, we did want...
So again, I'm in the blue bubbles. Did you try those Smirnoff screwdrivers? I stopped at the Hilly for one last night. I said, haha, how did you get my digits? Defendant responded, the Melissa and Lito show. I said, haha, I thought you creeped John's phone. I said, haha, again. Defendant responded, no way, I was the last person in Greater Canton who didn't have your number. I think even Kerry has it. I responded, what, with a bunch of question marks? I said, I just don't give my personal number out to anyone. How would Kerry have my number with a bunch of question mark? And the defendant responded, Melissa had it.
Now, as far as in those communications, the reference the defendant makes to the Melissa and Lito show, do you know what that means?
The 2 individuals that I also know from the hillside.
And the Kerry person that she refers to, do you know who that is?
I believe that's Kerry Curran, Chris Curran's wife. Vacation where? Defendant responded, I know. They need to have a weed whacker. The defendant said, no, you're not a creep. I said, nope. She said, you're kind of a loner, which I used to be in March of 2020. I'm so not a loser, you won't figure me out, LOL. Defendant responded, off from Brockton, spit it out. Defendant responded, you and I chatted about the girl who kept forgetting to lock the door. I said, oh, she has been out of play.
Into the next page, page 20, happened as...
I think you're messing with me. The defendant said, why do you think that? I responded, because this is so out of left field.
From that page, and who's speaking?
So I'm in the blue bubbles, and I said, I think you're messing with me. The defendant said, why do you think that? I responded, because this is so out of left field. Where did these feelings come from? Defendant responded, I just think you're like me. I said, meaning? Question mark. Defendant box. I responded, yes.
If I could direct your attention to the next...
We were the same texting. I responded, don't you have a boyfriend? Question mark. Defendant responded, where are you? Question mark. I said, Canton. Defendant is the 4 of us. I put the kids to bed and found him in the lobby of our hotel all over one of our friends. Whatever, it doesn't matter. I responded, it does matter.
Now, as far as that...
Why would I have thought you had any interest in me? Question mark. Usually do it when they do live with. Usually do it when they do live with someone. And then I said, do not do it. Defendant responded, maybe, maybe not.
Thank you, sir. If I could direct you to page 77. And ask you to read from that, sir.
I said I could go on and on, but I do not want to pump, it should say, your shit up too much. Defendant responded, thanks for saying that, but low comps at the hillside. I responded, you know how to ruin something nice. I frequent other places. The defendant responded, John has showed me about 5 times the ring video of me walking you out on Saturday, and my voice and my accent are killing me softly, with an emoji of somebody. I like Brian more and more. I responded, I think he's a good dude too. Defendant responded, yeah, he is. I responded, funny. What's your end game? What do you want from me? You will just confuse it should say the shit out of yourself. I responded, okay. Defendant said, you don't agree with me? Question mark, question mark. Have the bubble with a question mark. I then said, what do you drink? Question mark. Are you up?
You see that photograph that's being displayed?
Yes.
Are you in that photograph?
Yes.
Which person are you?
In the middle.
And about what time of day was it? That's you in the middle?
Correct.
Okay. About what time of day was this taken?
Not sure.
Was it an event, some sort, or just you were at a bar?
Just at a bar.
Okay. I want you to take a look at your right hand. Can you see from there clearly your right hand?
Yes.
What do you notice about your right hand?
It's cut up.
Your knuckles are injured, correct?
Correct.
Now, you didn't take this photo, did you?
Nope.
That photo was never on your phone. In other words, it wasn't a friend of yours that took the photo.
No.
This was taken by an event staff member, is that right?
Correct.
It was later posted on social media, isn't that right? You could not access the metadata, you couldn't access the time and date of that photo, correct? You couldn't manipulate the time or date this photo was taken. This photo is completely out of your control, isn't that right? And it was controlled by the event staff at Fenway Johnny's. And on February 26th, less than a month after the incident at Fairview, that's what your right knuckles look like, correct?
Correct.
You see that photograph?
So
Yes.
that's just saying that he had some, scabbed up knuckles. So Chris Albert had tried to apply for an order against Turtle Boy and was denied.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board, and community. I'm Eric Midnight, the celebrating agents, and gave a gift card and many more prizes. We had volunteers from the National Charity League, the Blue Chapter of Mother and Daughters helped out, as well as doing Thanksgiving meal for veterans and their families as well. So this is just something. That's all I have.
So, yeah, there you go.